Christian and you are looking to take your faith, your family, and your future to the next level,
then this is the channel for you.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Perfectly Blended Podcast, Season 4, Episode 4. Today we continue our series on the 12 steps of blended parenting. And we are actually coming to you today in the parking lot of the high school of Christy's youngest son.
It's our last child in school.
Yes.
So we're going to have to pick him up for marching band practice. So we had to do it in the car.
Yeah, we're doing it in the car.
The podcast.
We did. Whoa. That became more than a show. This is the one you'd want to watch, not listen to. So, but it's, it's today anyway. So we decided, we did this one time before. So we decided that we were going to go ahead and do it on scene again. It's fun, and why not? We can change the, where we do it and the mode that we do it. So today, though, we want to continue talking about blended families when it comes to parenting or not just parenting, but blended family marriages when it comes to the 12 steps. So, if you were on last week, we talked about the 12 steps in general, and the reason why we use the 12 steps is because Christy and I both have found sobriety through recovery through a 12-step program, and we're highly involved, and we lead a 12-step program at our church. It's a ministry called Celebrate Recovery. So we found so much value in that 12-step program that we've been able to actually use all of it to apply to our personal lives and to our marriage and to our blended family. So we thought it would be awesome for us to do an entire month full of the 12 steps. So each week for the 4 weeks of this month, we broke down each week into talking about 3 of the steps and how you can apply that to your blended family. All right? You got anything?
I don't see it live on here.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So it's not live at all. Well, I know it's live because Mark's on. What's up, Mark?
See, look, though, it's not.
What's up, Mark?
Nothing.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so anyway, we want to say hi. We're back. We don't know for how long, right? We should act like we're froze because apparently we're slow on connection. I don't know. Anyway, so we want to let everybody know.
We're just getting ready to drive somewhere.
Yeah, we're about to drive around. They're like, Facebook says, you should try finding a new location. So we're like, okay, we're in our car so we can drive. So anyway, if you're on right now and you're joining us, we're going through the 12 steps of blended family marriage. And so we're going to kick it off with number 4 today because we did the last 3 last week. So if you want to start over, I would suggest going back to the last episode and catching the first 3.
Yeah, because we are doing the 12 steps of recovery and how that equates to your blended marriage.
Yeah. So number 4, the step itself reads, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And the Bible verse that actually supports that is, let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord, and that is Lamentations 3:40. So the word we came up for this one that you can apply to your blended family and blended family marriage is responsibility. Responsibility.
So the responsibility to your blended marriage, though, is that you do make a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself, and you are honest with that to your spouse, and be able to take responsibility for your own actions in the marriage. You can't fix your spouse. You can't control your spouse's reactions to situations, but you can control your own reactions to situations. And you have to take a searching moral inventory of yourself, because a lot of times disagreements in marriages are from a misunderstanding, and it could be your perception of the situation. It's not just because you're upset about something and you feel like your spouse isn't living up to this expectation doesn't mean that they're actually wrong. That could be your perception of it. You have to have, what Josh likes to call, more thumbs and less fingers. So you got to be doing this all the time and take a moral inventory for yourself.
What's up, Miss Stacy? We're in our car too. She says she's watching us on her way home from getting her hair done.
Aww.
But yeah, so responsibility, just like Christy said, I think it's so important. It's so easy, I think, in blended families for us to look at other people, especially children, like our spouse's children, being part or being the problem. And we have to understand that we are only capable of taking responsibility for ourselves and the things that we can. I just had a conversation with somebody on the phone today about almost this exact conversation, and I said, we are still responsible of the way that we react to situations. And so, we want to have a healthy blended family in a marriage that's better than the last if you've been divorced. The only way we're going to do that is take personal responsibility, do a moral inventory. And all that means is check as a heart check.
Yeah.
Check yourself, where's your heart in the situation? Are you being defensive? Are you seeing yourself as like it's me against them? And then that kind of goes back to what Christy talked about last episode about we're on the same team. Like everybody's on the same team. And it's so important that we take personal responsibility for what we have in the relationship and in the family. And a lot of times we have to step it up an extra notch, especially in blended families. We have to take on more responsibility than what we want, and we don't get to share as much of that responsibility. That's why it just makes it that much more difficult in blended families, and why it's that much more important.
Got it.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
So you're working hard at it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm
working hard at it.
Sidetracked.
Yeah.
He's asking me to do stuff that he normally does, okay? And he should know better.
I don't have a choice. So number 5, right? So the 5th step says we admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And the Bible verse that goes with that says, therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. And that's James 5:16. And the word we put with this one is transparency. Transparency.
Yeah, so these are, if you didn't watch us last week, I wanted to recap about 1, 2, and 3 was that you admit, you believe, and you make a decision. Those were the 3 points for this one. And then this week we're covering responsibility for 4, and 5 is transparency. We'll get into 6 in a second. So we're doing the 4, 5, and 6 steps this week. And you have to be transparent when it comes especially to your marriage, especially in blended families, because there's always in any relationship, if you're not 100% honest with yourself, which is the responsibility part, number 4, you make a searching and fearless moral inventory for yourself. And then you're transparent about that with God and with your spouse. If there's an underlying current that you're not being honest. So you psychologically won't even open up or be as close to the person as you possibly can to your spouse because you don't fully trust them because you're not fully being open with them. Yeah. So before you get married in a blended family, you should be transparent about all of the shortcomings and everything. But currently in your current marriage, if Josh and I have been together for 11 years, and that doesn't mean that I'm not going to slip up and do something that we promised each other that we wouldn't do, or maybe I go buy something. Let's just use that as an example. We've always told each other that we would tell each other about purchases. I know in some marriages, especially the women would go out, maybe not, the men would buy fishing poles and stuff like that, but women going out and buying another pair of shoes or buying a purse and they hide it in the car and then they bring it in. That's dishonesty in your marriage, and that's not healthy. And if I slipped up and did that, even after being together for 11 years, I need to be transparent and come to him about that. I need to allow God to, let me convict me make a moral inventory and make myself take responsibility, and then go to my husband and be transparent about hey, I made a purchase. I did not talk to you about it. I am really sorry, and I don't want to do that again. I haven't done it, before. I don't want to start, all of this stuff.
Yeah, I think in blended families too, it's super easy to feel like you're justified in certain types of things that you do, because you're okay, I know we can't agree on this, but this is the way I've always done it, and because I'm 46 years old, I'm not going to change. So I'm just not going to be as transparent about some of the things that I do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be as forthcoming. Not that I'm being wrong, and I think we sell ourselves on some of that stuff, right? Christy mentioned something about money. I mean, money is a very sensitive topic, especially in blended families, right? It becomes, like, no, this is my money. I've earned all this money for all these years, and that's your money. So you can't tell me what I can do, and I'm not going to tell you what you can do. And I think that can be just a real big mistake. I mean, personally, it's how we feel about it, because you feel like you're in a position to where you don't have to be transparent or open about something. And I think that having transparency and being vulnerable is one of the most important things you can do, because it puts you in a position to where you have to trust each other.
Yeah.
That level of vulnerability and transparency means I'm putting myself out there so much that I'm completely wide open to be hurt. And I think what that does, I know what that does. It puts you in a position to truly trust each other. And that level of transparency will transform your relationship. It gives you an opportunity to grow together instead of just growing individually in different directions.
Yes. And we just shared, on one of our Christian couples for blended families page that we have, Facebook page. Our group, sorry.
Yep.
Is a quote by Brene Brown that says, vulnerability is the willingness to show up and be seen with no guarantee of the outcome. And this is probably going to be backwards. It is.
It is.
But that is a powerful quote, by Brene Brown. And if you don't know who she is, I mean, she's
just YouTuber.
Yeah, she's she got famous kind of by her TED Talk.
Yeah, I think she's a psychologist.
Yeah, so it's the willingness to show up, be vulnerable, and you don't understand actually how freeing that is. Like, yes, it does hurt sometimes because people aren't going to always accept you for everything that you are, but also once you realize that that's okay that people aren't going to like some of the things you do, they're allowed to not like it. That's freeing too.
That's so true.
And if you're not purposely going out to hurt your spouse, which I'm assuming you're not.
I hope not.
And your spouse gets upset about something, they're allowed to be upset. And because you love them and you're on the same team as them, it's like, listen, I'm coming to you just very vulnerable and saying, I'm really sorry about this. And I want to be transparent about it. Or I want to be transparent about something maybe that happened to me in my childhood or something that's happened to me throughout my life that I've never told anybody. And we're not going to be as close fully, like subconsciously and emotionally as we could be unless I just get this out in the open and allow us to connect on that level, because you won't. And if you're telling your spouse something, like if Josh and I have been together for 11 years and if I just now told him like, hey, I was molested from like 7 or 8 until I was 16 years old by my step grandpa, first off, he'd go through a whole array of feelings. He would feel like jaded, like, okay, for 11 years, you haven't been fully honest with me with who you are. That makes complete sense now why when we first got together, you were so broken and you had so much anger. That could have helped me, deal with you better, and what else aren't you telling me? Like, he would go through all of these emotions himself, and I would need to be patient as his spouse, allowing him to go through all that, because he'd be mourning, like he'd feel sorry for me, he'd feel sad for me, he'd kind of be mad that I haven't told him, it's taken me so long, and he needs to be allowed to go through those feelings as well. Yep. So, but that doesn't mean you don't. If it's been 11 years, that doesn't mean you still don't.
Right.
Like, you need to want your relationship to grow to a deeper level. You need to be able to be vulnerable about those things.
And I hate to say it, but I think that's a Christian thing to do. I think we grow so much that when now we have this huge expectation on ourselves to live up to this Christian lifestyle, right?
Yeah. I can't let people know now.
Right. Not now, because they'll see me different. Well, they will see you different.
Right.
And in the long run, God will let them see him through you. And I think that's where the power and transparency comes in. But I also want to remind you that this is so important. It's not just about you being transparent. It's about you creating a relationship with your spouse where they feel comfortable coming and being transparent and vulnerable with you. And I think that's where kindness and openness and understanding really play a key role in your relationship. I posted something in our group the other day, our blended group, and I said, 90%, almost all, probably better than 90%, of all issues within a blended family, the solution begins in the marriage.
Yeah.
It begins between the couple.
Which is so true.
And I'm talking the majority of stuff that we read online where people are struggling, they're struggling with kids. Okay, it's the kids portion. It's like me struggling with Christy's kids, and that's my frustration. The solution isn't how can I parent better. To be honest with you, that's not where the solution begins. It begins in the marriage. It begins in the focus of understanding how God's created us and how God commands us to be together, and that's to put Him at the center and then to put each other next. And once we start focusing on that stuff, we understand the power in transparency, we understand the power in vulnerability, and we respect it. So if Christy came to me 11 years later and says, I have something I need to tell you, that I want her to know that she can still come and do that. It's no different than being part of a church and knowing that even if you felt like you've lived a great Christian life for 20 years and on the 21st year you did something horrible, that you still feel comfortable enough to go and tell the church, to go tell the pastor, to go tell your friends within the church that you have enough, bond there to do that. We have to think of our marriages and our blended families of the same when it comes to transparency. That one's so powerful. I love that one.
Yeah, it's in one of the groups that we're a part of. I just saw this the other day, and it takes everything in me not to engage in these, because they're not Christian groups, right? They're blended family groups, but not all of them are Christian groups. And someone posted in there the other day, like, I just need advice because my husband and I, we have an 8-month-old together, but he also has an 8-year-old daughter, and he gives her money and he does all this stuff for her, but he doesn't work. I'm the one that works, and I'm trying to tell him, like, I'm no longer willing to give his daughter money. That is his daughter. It's not my daughter. And I am like, whoo, ouch. Like, if just the other day, him and I were talking, and I'm like, I love so-and-so, or I appreciate so-and-so, or I would always accept this person in your family because I love you.
Yeah.
And if you love your husband, you love your spouse, and you are unconditionally loving them, you want to love what they love and who they love.
Yeah. And
that just, to me, I'm like, that's not completely being in your marriage. That's not completely
being a team.
Being a team. And how I could never, with how hard Josh and I have worked to be one and to have the strongest marriage and to be each other's biggest cheerleaders and to just be like, I am your biggest fan. I will always be here for you. I will always support you. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree on everything, but we are always together on decisions. To have your spouse, that is like the biggest slap in the face. To have your spouse basically say, I'm supporting you, but I'm not supporting your offspring because it's not mine. That is just hateful. It's hateful. And it's just not, it's not okay.
And I think the big misconception with that, and I know we're kind of side
we are, but we started talking about groups. That's
yeah.
what made me think of
no, but I think it's true. And I think a big misconception is that people are going to get involved. And then because you love the spouse, because you love this person so much, that you're automatically going to love their kids. And that just isn't always this. It's just not like that. Okay. So a lot of times, I would say almost every time that people blend families, there's always one child and one parent that conflict hard, right? The non-bio parent and their non-bio kid. There's always some form of drastic conflict. Like, it's gonna happen. But the thing is we have to rise above that, and we have to make sure that we're creating a stronger bond within our marriage, right? Together, so we can love everybody through it. Because Ron Deal says it's a crock pot. Like, it doesn't form overnight, and it's not magic, right? So it's important that you you have to focus on each other and what's best for each other.
Well, even if you take this though, step 4 is you make a moral and searching inventory of yourself. You have to be honest with yourself, and then you admit to God and to another human being, which in this case would be your spouse. Yep. You have to be honest with yourself and not try to pretend. You're not going to unconditionally love and view your stepkids the same that you do your biological kids.
That's true.
You are not.
It's true.
And the sooner you accept that, the easier then it is to extend grace instead of you're trying to pretend, and then you're trying to stuff down anger and all the stuff. And then you go to your spouse, because with your stepkids, it's easier to be a like and a dislike. Like, yes, I like them today. Okay, now they're being jerks. I don't like them today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'll like them again. You're not like that with your kids. I can be mad at my child, and if someone messed with them while they're being a jerk to me, shoot that person in the face.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. Whereas, like, a stepkid sometimes, if someone starts being mean to them and they're being jerk to you, they're like, you can sit back and be like, see, you are a jerk. It's not me.
Getting what you deserve.
It's not just me.
Right.
Okay, you see, someone else is telling you. So it's like you need your spouse to correct your behavior when it comes to the view of your stepkids for that. And that's why we need to be transparent and safe with one another about each other's feelings and vulnerable. Because then he would come back, if I'm upset with one of his kids, I instantly get into like, I don't like them right now. And then he'll be like, well, if you think about it this way, okay, I love him and I want to respect the way that he's viewing it.
Yeah.
And if it was one of my kids, I probably would look at it differently. And that's the truth about things. Yeah. And we want to be better. So trying to pretend that doesn't exist is not going to allow you to get better.
No, it's dangerous.
Because you're trying to pretend that you're already better. Yeah. And that's not real. Or
seeking outside of your marriage to vent to other people, is very dangerous. We've talked that many times on our podcast, but, keeping it within the marriage is the most important thing. It's the most important thing. Sticking with each other and being transparent and open and honest with each other is just vital.
Yeah.
All right, number 6.
Yeah,
number
it's
6.
Starting to rain.
Number 6. Yeah, it's starting to rain.
It's going to be loud.
It probably sounds cool. As long as it doesn't hail, we'd be good. Okay, so number 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And then the Bible verse says, humble ourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. And that is James 4:10. And the word for that is submit. Submit. Women love this word. Especially like strong, type A personality women like my wife. They love the word submit.
Whatever. I actually am fine with it. We talked about it I actually am the one that brought it up at our event and wanted to talk about it because I think that if we're honest, a person shies away from the word if they're...
Stacey's like, not.
They shy away from the word if they're insecure about it or if they struggle with pride about it, And so I was insecure about that word because it's like, if I submit to him, he's going to tell me what to do and no one tells me what to do. And
nobody.
It's not that. It's God has designed for him to be the leader of the home. He's going to be held responsible when he gets to heaven on a different level than me about how he led our family. That is the design of God. And if I don't allow my husband to take the role that God has ordained him to take, then because I'm trying to be prideful or because I'm insecure about the word submit, then that's on me.
Yep.
His portion of that is to create a space for me to be able to submit to him in a safe place and have him not abuse that authority that God has designed him to do.
Absolutely.
Now, if your husband is abusing that authority, God will correct that. God is your vindicator on that.
Yeah.
So it's like my role is to allow him to have that, and his role is to give that to me and make me want to do that. I'm going to show this.
It is shut.
No, the whole thing. No, the thing.
I got
you.
Go. I mean, so I think it's important too that we don't play the only if game, right? So I'm going to submit only if my husband creates an environment that I like, or the husband says, only if my wife submits, I will begin to do this. That's not how it works. That's why we can always go back to the step of personal responsibility, taking responsibility. We have to remember how God has ordained things to be done in our marriage. And it's super important that we follow that no matter what. And when we talk about submit, ultimately, everyone submits to Jesus. Everybody. Mm-hmm. We need to submit to the Word of God, what God says, how our lives are designed, and the best way to follow that. Those are the first thing that we submit to. And then we submit, to the other things that we talk about, right? The woman submits to the man, and the man makes sure that he submits in a way that he loves and cares for his wife and creates a safe and loving environment. These are the things that we have to learn how to do. And it's so hard to do. Nobody's saying it's not hard.
Right.
But anything worth having, and you got to remember, your last relationship, if you've been divorced, something went wrong. And it's like, how can I create better this time? We have to submit to God and submit to the ways of what he's asking us to do in our relationship. And it is hard.
It is hard. And if you're just joining us, we normally don't do this in our car. We actually have a podcast room and office that we do this in. We told everybody at the beginning we're picking our son up from marching band practice, and it's storming out, and we're in our car.
Yeah, it's
doing
cool.
it. So last week, if you didn't catch last week's, we covered steps 1 through 3 when it comes to the 12 steps of recovery and how it applies to your blended marriage. And I also shared, because the 12 steps, for those of you that don't know, came from the 8 Beatitudes on the Bible.
Yep.
And last week I shared the Beatitudes that go along with those steps. And this week there's 2 Beatitudes that go with these 3 steps. So it is for step 4 and 5, it's openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. This is the Beatitude.
Yeah.
Happy are the pure in heart, which is Matthew 5:8. That's the 8 one of the 8 principles that go along with steps 4 and 5. And then this one goes with step 6, which we're covering today, and also step 7, which we will cover next week, is voluntarily submit to any and all changes God wants to make in my life and humbly ask him to remove my character defects. That's the 8 Beatitude. That's one of the 8 Beatitudes that goes with that. So I want to correlate those because the 12 steps that we're covering came from the 8 Beatitudes of the Bible. I want to also list those when we're, doing these podcasts and talking about them. Very funny, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We do live in our car. We're homeless.
If we lived in our car would be a lot dirtier than this.
No, it wouldn't. I'd make sure that would not be that case, okay? It's funny, so the other day at church on Sunday, the pastor says something like, who here is a germaphobe? And we're just sitting there, and Christy's like, you better raise your hand. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm a germaphobe.
He is.
I don't think that I am, but maybe I am. I just really like to wash my hands a lot. And I like to be clean.
He likes to touch stuff with rubber gloves and I don't know.
Dude,
I'm not like to that point. I'm not dirty, but I'm not fearful of dirt.
Yeah, I have to have rubber gloves in the house, okay? We have teenage boys. Like, you can't go clean a toilet that teenage boys use.
I wouldn't use
without
gloves.
a hazmat suit.
I wouldn't use gloves. I just scrub it. Not with my hand, but with something in my hand.
No, that's dangerous. That's where COVID began. Okay, it was the teenage boys' bathroom.
So can we recap for the last 2?
You want to recap last week and this week?
Yeah, what was the 3 words for last week?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here.
Oh, that's okay. I'll remember. So last week we covered the first 3 steps. It was
I got it.
Oh, I was gonna say, because I'm on the 8 principles still.
I got it, people. Okay, I'm prepared, more prepared than I thought I was. Okay, so the first thing, right? So the first step was we admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behavior. I'm not gonna read the whole thing.
No, I was just saying the words.
Number one. I know what I'm doing. I didn't. Number 1 is admit. Number 1 is admit. Number 2 is believe. Number 3 is decide.
So you need to admit that you are powerless over yourself, like your sinful natures, and you need to believe that God can correct those in you, and then decide to move forward together in your marriage, that you both are going to be doing that. And then this week we are doing responsibility, transparency, and submit. So you need to take responsibility for yourself, you need to be transparent with those, and then you need to submit your relationship to God. And then you need to submit to one another that you're going to follow these. Yeah.
And I think it's important that we understand, these are Beatitudes from the Bible. Christy did mention that, but I just want to reiterate. This is a way that God has literally told us how to live our lives better.
And that's how I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
Well, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Keep firing off.
Sorry. So we had a business coach that we were working with for a while about things, and we've talked with other people over the course of our 11 years, and we've had more than one, including our business coach, that has been like, after hearing our history, the type of people we were, what we've went through, the type of people we used to be when we came together, and how he's 12 years sober, I'm 10 years sober. Everyone's like, how is your relationship in your marriage? How do you guys get along so well? How do you guys stay so close and so tight, even like when we're disagreeing on things? And we both agree that he worked his 12-step recovery program, and I worked 12-step recovery program to find recovery. But what the 12 steps does is teaches you these things. And that's why we're covering those, is because your blended family starts with your marriage. Your marriage only starts with you. That's it. So you have to go through these 12 things. And if both of you can do it together, that's glorious that you can do that. But if you are the only one that's doing it in your marriage, God still wants you to be the one to do it.
Right.
And these 12 steps lead to nothing but good. It only makes you a better person. It only helps you grow. And the 12 steps came from the 8 Beatitudes of the Bible. This is God's design for our life and how we should live our life. That's why.
Yeah, and I would pray in a perfect world that both of you are working on, yourselves. I would pray that that's the case. It's not always the case, though. A lot of times, and we've noticed it even on our own show, usually one of the two watch, right? Not everybody has a couple that's going to be sitting down and that's interested in, understanding how they can make their family better, how they can make themselves better, how all these things can happen. And I think it's so important that we understand that it's not always how it works. It all starts with our own personal journey. And, how will we continue to grow? And then we start to learn, when God's growing us individually, how to impact our family in an amazing way. And when that begins in our marriage. And, my ability to influence Christy in the beginning of our relationship was a huge thing. I didn't treat her anything like I did at any other relationship I've ever had. And it's because I understood the values of having a good relationship with her.
And because I'm just awesome.
Because she's the greatest human that's ever lived on this planet, except for one other, and he died a long time ago, about 2,000 years. So anyway, I think it's important that we understand, and once she started finding some sobriety, she's the one that says, hey, we need some Jesus in our life, and I didn't understand that. And so, but I trusted her. And so, it's really funny. We always tell everybody, I showed her sobriety, but she showed me Jesus. And that is a true testimony. That really is the truth. And it's because we understood the power in working on ourselves and growing, and we trusted in each other. And now we've been on this journey for, almost 11 years total. And it's amazing. And, and we have understand that a lot of the value comes from these 12 steps. So much of it. It helps us grow individually, but it also helps us grow together. And so, Cassie said, can I get an outline of these 12 steps for blended families and these podcasts? Yeah, absolutely. We have a sheet that I'm going to, at the end of this whole thing, I'm going to put out all 12 steps, and I'll make sure to put it on our Facebook page. And so everybody will have it. You can download it. I'll do it like a PDF. And so then, everybody can have a copy of this. And I think, it's important that we understand the power in the Bible verses that go along with it. It's one great thing about Celebrate Recovery is there's the power and word of God, and understand how it impacts our lives. So I'm going to make sure to include that as well. Do you have anything else you want to add before we close out tonight? I was just wondering what you were doing.
I'm sharing the stuff to our page.
She's getting on it right now. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this awkward episode that we had in our car in the rain.
Awesome.
Awkward, but it's
good to change.
It's
things
unique.
up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I love it, and it looks like there's going to be a tornado soon, so that's also awesomely fun. So, thank you so much for being here. Tune in next week at 7. We'll be back in our office next week, and we'll continue on the 12 steps.
7, 8, and 9.
Yep, 12 steps of blended marriage. We'll see you guys next week.
Don't forget to share.
Sharing is caring.
Bye.